So I think there's actually a real problem with the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman now, and I've even actually just realised this myself. It having a eureka moment or an insight moment is really important, even if you've been studying or thinking or looking about something yourself for a while. You still might not have just seen it a certain way, and it could be so simple, right? I don't think that the Parliamentary Health Service Ombudsman has been operating properly, right? Now, they come across as if, it's a specialised department, they're there to help you, they've got all these telephone systems, friendly staff, they've even got another service which monitors how well they're doing that ring you up. But the Ombudsman serves once and doesn't serve again, right? Now, I first encountered the Ombudsman after 2013. It was when Barry Shearman was MP, right? And I filled the form in because I'd got an investigation, but I was doing my investigation myself by petition to Parliament, right? I was the investigator. I was getting Parliament to act. Now, what they've done is they've sort of, some of the things that we would petition Parliament about ourselves, they've got these ombudsmen and the House of Commons Commissioner dealing with it, so you don't go through public petitions, but that sort of bypasses the point of using an authoritative jurisdiction or complaints process. And they're even talking in the committee reports about saying that if the House of Commons Commissioner doesn't accept a complaint, it's not privileged anymore. And that actually evades and bypasses the point of using and taking up the right to petition on behalf of the petitioner, right? Under the 1688 Bill of Rights. Because that's kind of like Rees Mogg in his committee report, saying, petition is completely privileged, but, we can't have all these, libelous or scandalous petitions going around. But that's the whole point of them, right? That's why they've got the Parliamentary Papers Act. It's the whole point. Right? It's like saying, we've got all these criminal offences, but we can't go around, getting people who are innocent, smeared all the time, have to defend themselves, This is part of it, Now, look, I did try to use the Ombudsman after 2013. It was between 2013 and 2019. It was a relatively easy process to do. There was a form, right, that only had a form. You filled and completed the form in with your complaints, and then you sent it to an MP to sign, right? And then you submitted it. Now, I actually got Barry Shearman to sign mine, but he wasn't even my MP, but I didn't know at the time, right? Because I live right on the border between two different constituency areas, right? And I thought my MP was Barry Shearman. Or it said just get an MP to sign it. I think it could possibly have been my MP, might have been Simon Reevell at the time, right? And actually, if I knew what I knew now, that would have been a good thing because Simon Reevell's going to be a barrister, right? And I could have gone to him. I've also had Mark Eastwood as an MP just before the pandemic, and I was going to go see him about all this stuff, but then they locked everyone down in the pandemic. Now, let me just explain this. My complaint is a little bit like this Noel Wilcox case, right? Noel Wilcox is doing it himself, though. Noel Wilcox isn't going to the Ombudsman. Noel Wilcox is going to the courts and getting the courts to act. But even Noel Wilcox actually investigated illegal road signage in London to do with the ULEZ and LES cameras, right? And he actually got a court order. He went through the tribunals, etc., and got a court order from Bedfordshire County Court. Right, so it validated his complaint, but then he went to the High Court to try and get it extended to validate more of the cameras in a wider area, I think, or more of the LES and ULEZ cameras over a longer amount of time, so they could get these fines returned, right? And we were waiting to see what happened, and he went to the High Court, and they turned his case down. They wouldn't actually hear it, which was quite peculiar. Now, what he's done now is he's gone to one of the councils who was involved in them 5 cases, right? the 5 cases versus the Mayor of London, one of the councils was Bromley, right? Because they wanted to stop the ULEZ zone getting expanded. Now, Noel Wilcox went into Bromley Council and they backed him up. They said that they'd help him with get this court case heard in the High Court, right? Now, he could have gone to the Ombudsman as well, but he's kind of fighting it himself through the courts. Why isn't he doing a petition to Parliament? Well, there are already petitions to Parliament over ULEZ. There are already petitions to Parliament over the ULEZ issue, which Theresa Villiers even did a campaign and talked about it. But were they talking about, all the illegal road signage to do with it? Surely if you get hundreds of thousands of signatures about something, some matter, and MPs do a competent investigation into it, it should include, the legality of it as well as, whether you should do it or not, particularly when some of those petitioners are raising issues of the legality side of it, right? So there are petitions to Parliament, and they've been signed by, hundreds of thousands of people. There are some on change.org and 38 Degrees as well. All together, I actually did a petition to the House of Lords over it, and I collected all of the petitions together and amalgamated them, and there were probably there were around 1 million signatures from all of the cases. So yes, there are petitions about it and actually about the legality of it, right? But Parliament aren't doing anything about it. And then you've got all these other petitions that we're doing by e-petitions, and they're censoring them, and they won't even publish them. And this is my other complaint to the Ombudsman is about that, right? Now, so other people have sort of been doing something similar to me, the illegal road signage investigation, and they also are facing obstructions, right? Obstructions. Now, let's go back to my case, 2013 to 2019, right? Firstly, my YouTube channel's been removed illegally by YouTube, and that is a serious contempt to the Parliament of England, right? We don't have the Section 230 of the Online Decency Act 1996 in England, so YouTube cannot take that material or damage it. In fact, it's a terrorist act against me, against the Terrorism Act 2000, the threat to intervene in democratic processes, right? So they've taken my evidence down on my whole YouTube channel, illegal YouTube, right? And Parliament are advertising these channels like YouTube and Facebook and Google products on their own website, right? For their own contact pages, which is scandalous because they're for profit, these platforms mainly, right? Even though they let you sign up for free. Now, I don't want to be confusing here, right? I'll try and be more simple and less confusing. Look, what is the complaint? Well, the complaint is that the Ombudsman is meant to be there to look into complaints against government departments, right? Now, the complaint was that we're getting prosecuted illegally by the police, right, when the road signs are in place. Now, the police are going to check those road signs, okay? And they won't investigate themselves. They won't act. Now, who puts the road signs there? Well, the police do have a part to play in that, but so do local councils, right? And also, so do the Crown Prosecution Service are involved in it as well. Now, the Ombudsman doesn't investigate the courts, right? But the courts were involved in it as well. The courts were involved in these illegal prosecutions. Now, you've got to complain to the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office about the courts, right? Which I've done thoroughly, absolutely thoroughly, right? So, what about the Ombudsman complaint? The original one. The original Ombudsman complaint, I filled the form in. There was quite a lot to say, but I filled it in, and I just said what the complaint was. What is the issue, right? And then Barry Shearman signed it without any... I didn't have any problem with Barry Shearman signing that complaint, right? And then I submitted it. Now, they did not investigate it. Why? Because remember that I've through this period, I was quite upset and under stress, right? So they said that they weren't going to investigate it because they wanted me to put the police complaint in one form. And then they wanted me to put the CPS complaint in one form, separate. And then the local council complaint in another form, separate, right? Now, if they can only investigate one of those authorities, right, they're the Ombudsman of England. They're meant to be the guardian of things that are going wrong. They're meant to be the people who know what is going wrong with this country, right? And because people are telling them, right? And they're meant to be there to act. Now, if you received a serious complaint from a citizen, right, and you're therefore being made aware of something being wrong in this country, right, the Ombudsman's the one who wants to know about it, right? Because, you know, now, if they would ignore that and not act on it, is that not irresponsible, possibly even reckless, to be supposedly looking out for things that are wrong in this country, but they receive the information and, oh, sorry, we can't do anything about it, right? That would be alarming and concerning, possibly even irresponsible, right? Possibly even dangerous, right? Now, this is what I didn't realise back then, right? Because I didn't raise this with them. If they can only investigate one of those departments, right, but I've reported 3 departments, why don't they just investigate one department and not the other 2, right? They've got the information there. They've got the information there, so why didn't they just investigate one department and not the other 2? Because they've received a complaint with the information, right? So to me, that seems like an excuse. An excuse. Now, that particular complaint, right, apparently they can't find it on the system or they don't know anything about it, which is, I cannot believe that. It's ridiculous. Now, I did not, I wasn't like, you know, this very, very serious thing to take on the police with illegal road signage around all England, right? And I was actually collecting more evidence and doing the investigation, but I was having to learn about the rights as well, okay? The rights side of it, the political rights side of it, right? Because you need to use the political rights to do the investigation. Now, I did not resubmit the 3 separate complaints because I was doing lots of things. Now, look at Noah Wilcox, right? He tried and tried and tried and tried, and the courts just wouldn't hear it, right? And he's having to get counsel to back him up. So you still get these people who are very, you know, they've got a very strong will, right? And even they're getting pushed back. I mean, I was doing things and doing investigations and learning things, right? But filling the forms in and getting the Ombudsman to act. So I got deterred, basically. They wouldn't take it on. They could have ignored the 2 complaints that they couldn't look into and looked into one of them, right? They could have done that. Now, the annoying thing is that when I've rung the Ombudsman more recently, they're trying to make out that when they get all the complaints in, right, then they have got a team who's correlating things behind the scenes, who's actually looking for connections between complaints where separate people might complain about things and there's a connection to show that, you know, department's doing something wrong. Now, so you're telling me that if I'd have submitted all the complaints and then they'd have found a connection, then they could have put them together, right? But I've done the work for them. I've actually made the connection between the different departments, the local council, the highways and the police, and I've put it together myself to help them out, because that's what they do anyway, put it together. So it's a con. Now, I didn't realise this at the time, but the Ombudsman is actually kind of there to replace and do the job of some of the right to petition. Because when we had the right to petition Parliament, right, some of the petitions were about local government departments that were misbehaving, right? Misconduct. So that's why your MP signs it. That's why they made the act that the MP signs it, because they're passing it off to another department to deal with, right, after the MP signs it. And that's the ridiculous thing. Now, let's come forward now to where we are now. What does this mean, right? Why am I making this video, right? I'm making this video for this reason. Now, I decided I needed to do something with the Ombudsman again, because but since my complaint, all hell has broken loose with everyone else around the country. When I was doing that investigation, there was no other YouTubers going around doing campaigns, flyers, posters, people getting prosecuted illegally with court cases, people turning up at court to help them out. Literally the whole country's lit up with similar things, like a Christmas tree, right? It was just me. Now, Extinction Rebellion was just taking off and is just starting to get big, and people find out about it, right? And also that anonymous movement group as well was starting to sort of get more known about. But this is the thing, right? No one was there to help me. And, you know, it was not like Noel Wilcox was getting the council to back him up. The council was involved in some of the illegal road signage. But in London, right, with Noel Wilcox's case, the local councils that are opposed to you, Les, are actually helping him against illegal road signage now, right? Now, this is the thing. When I went to the Ombudsman this time, okay, I was expecting, well, I went to go get the form, because I probably got a blank form somewhere on my computer, but I didn't look for it. So I went onto the website, but it was all new, right? It was all new. Now, if I would have found the old Ombudsman complaint form, filled it in, I would have emailed it to my MP and to get him to sign it. But that's not what happened. And this is what I've been talking for 17 minutes now, and I'm going to tell you what happened, right? I went onto the Ombudsman website. You had to create an account. Once you created an account, right, you created a complaint on the system, right, which is on the website live. Now, this is where maybe my intuition has got the better of me, right? It's very similar to the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office complaints, right? In the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office complaints, you have an account and you have cases. You have multiple, I've got multiple cases, right? I've got probably over 50 cases. You create a case and you can add to it, you can upload files, you can manage the case, right? So I immediately recognised that, the Parliamentary and Health Ombudsman have got an online website now where you log in and you can have multiple cases and have case management. Now, this is the problem. Usually in life, things are intuitive, right? You follow an intuitive process, right? And you get a resolution. But unfortunately, since the David Cameron government took over and Labour, the government has decided that it wants to beat us all. It's not really there to help us like it claims it is. It's actually quite sinister, insidious, and actually un-user-friendly, like Google's become. And all of the Google and Facebook and all these things are starting to do things which, invade on your privacy, etc., like what Big Brother Watch are investigating, right? Now, this is the thing. I filled the form in, so my complaint is there, completed and filled in. At the end of the process, it did not actually say to send it to your MP, right? It made it look like that because it's a very, very modern website and it's all brand new and you did fill in who your MP was, you filled in who your MP was, right? You told them who your MP was, and then after you finish the complaint, right, you press finish. Now, to me, it made it look and feel like that, you know, because you've got like Big Brother Watch, you've got all these fancy web forms where you fill in your MP's name and it knows who your MP is and what his email address is, and it automatically kind of sends him a message like if you support Big Brother's cause. They've got a thing with all the MPs on the system, right? Why would the Parliamentary Health Service, Ombudsman of all England, the most technologically advanced place on earth, with a brand new computer system, when you've already filled in who your MP is, right, and then you press submit, why would anyone in their right mind not think that that would automatically have your MP on their system and they automatically send out an email to your MP to consent to it so they can have a look at it, right? Let your MP automatically send it to your MP, right? That is, from going on that website, right, and being a test subject, right, you know, an average person who goes on there, that is what I intuitively, when I read it as it read off the page and when I looked at it, that's what it looked like. Now, I didn't see anywhere to download the form at that point. They're saying that I had to download the form still, right, and send it to my MP. I had to send it to my MP, email it to them. But, right, this is the thing. Apparently, when you do that form now, that all brand new, modern, singing, dancing, state-of-the-art form, right, if you don't download it when you finish completing it there and then on the day at that time, right, you can't download it at a later stage, right? If you didn't download it when you completed the form, then you can't download it. Now, don't you think that is absolutely insane and ridiculous that you've got a online complaint site where you join and you can log on there and you can check your cases for progress, and they're all stored and saved on there permanently, right? Like judicial conduct. But if you did not download the form at the time that you'd finished it, you can't just log back in and download it later. You might be busy. Can you imagine if you've got a laptop and you're on a lunch break and you go to Costa Coffee and you do your ombudsman complaint for an hour while you're on your lunch break, but then you've got to go back to work and you say, I'll download it later, right? But you can't, right? Now, what they've saying, the Ombudsman, is they're saying, that's not a major problem. They're saying that it's no biggie. It's not a biggie. It's no major problem if you didn't download the form, because all you have to do is get your reference number, right? If you've got that reference number, all you need to do is tell your MP that reference number and email it to him, or even tell him it on the phone, like whether it is, 789324 or whatever. And all he has to do is he can just still authorise the complaint. He can still do it. He can still just say, he can contact the Ombudsman and say, this is a reference number of my constituent, my client, and I authorise the complaint, right? You don't have to download the form. But this is the thing. None of these MPs, right, want to sign something they can't see or haven't looked at, right? So my MP really has been like, I want to see this form. I'm not signing something that I haven't seen. I'm not signing something that I don't know what it is. I want to look at it. I want to read and see in detail what I'm signing. Now, the Ombudsman are trying to make it sound extremely simple, like it's no biggie, right? Like, don't worry, sir. All you have to do is have your reference number, and then you can tell your MP to sign it. But then they're saying, they've got no obligation to sign it, whatever. Well, they're not going to be wanting to sign it, and they're not going to be wanting to look at it, usually, if they don't know what it is and haven't read it, right? Although you can explain to them what it is. But this is the thing. It's all on the website. It's all on the website permanently in a case recorded, right? like the judicial conduct. So it's all on record on the system. So how your MP can't see it when it's on the state-of-the-art live system is absolutely ridiculous and insane, right? Now, some MPs might sign it, right? Or if you give them the reference number, it's no problem. Oh, yeah, no problem, right? I'll just authorise it, right? But my MP, right, being Iqbal Muhammad, right, I can understand that he wants to see it, right? He wants to see it. Well, he can't see it because I didn't download it and it wasn't my fault. Now, what I've realised is this, right? This must be the biggest new scam that the government have got going, right? Because I know that I'm not stupid and retarded, right? If you have an experience with online websites where you create a account and have cases, multiple cases, you know that those cases are all there, right? Because how do you look at it? Well, you just log in and look at it, right? You can log in and look at it any time you want. You can log in and look at it, right? You can log in and look at it whenever you want because it's there all the time. But it's not you who needs to see it, it's your MP. So why they don't have MPs logging in at their end to look at all the complaints they've got from their constituency, I don't know, right? Now, this is my opinion, right, from my experience. I didn't have a problem with the paper forms, right? They were fine. There was nothing wrong with them. This online system misled me, right? It misled me to believe that it was more technologically advanced, right, than it was. But you can log in whenever you want and look at your case, right? But I haven't wanted to log in because it's actually been making me more and more and more stressed. Just the fact that he hasn't even, they haven't even looked at it yet. And then they were ringing us up. They were actually ringing us up from the Ombudsman's, the partner company, asking us how they'd done, how well they'd done. Well, they haven't done well because they hadn't even done anything yet. They hadn't even done anything. So that was actually really annoying. And I didn't actually complete that service because that's another rigid questions-only service. We'll think of the questions and we'll think of the answers type service, right? Now, I don't think that I'm the only one who's been misled by this new website. Because if you'd never complained to the Ombudsman before and if you'd never filled the paper form in and if you'd never sent it to your MP to get it signed, right? The way that they've done this new website is that it's made to read and look and feel like when you get to the end of the thing, then that's it. And because you've already entered who your MP is, right, and you press complete, why would they not inform your MP, right? Why would you enter your MP's name and click a complete thing on a process, right? And why would you have to download something there and then? What website do you go on where, there's an option to download something, but it can only be done at one time? Not most complaint things. In fact, I'm pretty sure that on the Judicial Conduct Investigation website, on the casework side of it, if you upload any files or attach any files, you can download them when you want. So, anyway, I actually now have realised that this is not just me, right? There's got to be lots of Ombudsman complaints, right? There've got to be loads and loads of Ombudsman complaints that other people have made and they didn't download this form at the end and therefore they're just waiting, and it doesn't explicitly say on the new website or make it clear that you've got to physically, separately get your MP to sign it and get back in touch with them again. It makes it look like it's all done automatically and automated. And to be honest, I did not actually notice that there was an actual option to download it. It made it look like you download it just so you've got a copy yourself, right? Like an additional copy. Why would you need to download it if you've got a live case on the system and it's on the system and the Ombudsman are going to be looking at it from the computer, from the system, right? Not from the paper. Because what's the point in having the system? What's the point in having the complaint on record online to look at, right? Why would you want an extra physical copy of the complaint when the complaint's already online, right? That's surely how your MP would look at it, right? Online, right? So if these MPs aren't actually looking at them, and if a person doesn't think to contact their MP, then they're just going to be there on the system and nothing being done about them, right? Now, I did contact my MP, and he never got back to me. And then like a month later, he's got a letter saying, what's happening with this Ombudsman complaint? And I'm like, what? They say, we haven't got your contact details, so we can contact you. Well, you've just written to me. They did have my contact details. So I rung them up, I gave them my contact details, I sent them in the post my contact details, and I emailed them my contact details. And I've just had a missed call today, right? And I must have telephoned them 3 or 4 more times since. So it's just useless and rubbish. Now, this is the thing. I've also been telephoning quite a few MPs, right? I've telephoned multiple MPs for various other complaints, like Jeremy Corbyn's got 50 MPs signed to that issue with those prisoners that they want released, things like that. But also I've just been complaining to MPs, because I can. They're not my MP, but so what? I'll still complain to them and raise awareness of something, right? And also, I have got a complaint through the 1661 Tumultuous Petitioning Act that you actually can raise an issue with an MP if it's in their area, right? Even if you're not born from that area. And that's in the 1661 Tumultuous Petitioning Act, the basis for it, because they've had all these MP scandals where there've been people interested in investing in the area, business people who want to invest in the area, and they've managed to get meetings with MPs, right? So that shows that MPs have had meetings with people who weren't from their area, but they want to invest in the area. So they've been prioritising business, right, to meet MPs and get time with MPs when people aren't from the area, but they're going to invest in it. But yet they won't do that with people with private complaints and grievances like us, right? So they've been treating business with priority over regular persons. And when I've been talking to some of these MP secretaries, right, I'm even talking about the rules as well. Like, they don't even know where the rules are for these strict rules for MPs. They haven't been able to show me them, right? And also, I was speaking to them about e-petitions, because I've had a problem with the e-petition service. And not really... I haven't had any of these MP secretaries who really know much about the e-petition service. You'd have thought that they would be very, very, very familiar with it and know about it, but they don't seem to have any experience with it or know anything about it. And also, I've actually been mentioning Ombudsman's complaints. Now, Ombudsman's complaints must be one of the main things that surely MPs get, particularly at the moment, when they've got all the whole countries kicking off and going ballistic about this, that and the other. But it didn't sound like many of them were familiar with the Ombudsman complaints, to be honest. And some of these MPs are new, right? And they're not all like MPs who have been there for donkey's years, like Lindsay Hoyle in 1997 or Jeremy Corbyn. Some of these MP secretaries, particularly my MP who's new, Iqbal Mohammed, well, fair enough. If he's brand new and this is his first parliament, they've only been in place for 12 months or something like that. His secretary doesn't even, they've never heard of Ombudsman complaints before. They don't even know what they are. So that's quite alarming and, serious, really, because they're meant to really, really know what they are. So if you've got quite a lot of new MPs and they've got a new team and new secretaries and things like that who haven't got, like 10, 20 years of experience. They don't really even know what these ombudsman complaints are, but it didn't sound like from, maybe I'm wrong, but when I spoke to the secretary for my actual MP, she didn't give me the impression in her tone and in what she said, it didn't sound like they'd had many ombudsman complaints. But yeah, it's a very urban and highly populated area that they're in, right? You would have thought that with the current complaints about this government, you would have thought that there were loads and loads and loads of people. But, maybe it's a little bit like petitions, When you go into the e-petitions website and you count how many are being created, which is difficult to do now because they're trying to cover it up, but you can count how many if you submit more than one petition, you can see how many are being created. And there might be if you wait for 5 minutes, there might have been anywhere from 5 to 10 petitions, right, being made since you did yours. So there's quite a lot of them being created every day. But obviously when you divide that by the whole country, it's only a very small amount per area, maybe only 1, 2 or 3. So are there more ombudsman complaints or less ombudsman complaints being created than e-petitions? But remember that half of the e-petitions have been rejected now or censored, right? But that clearly is the case with the ombudsman complaints, because if people who are new to it now are using the ombudsman service, and if they were misled like I have been, even though I've had experience with it before and I knew what to do, the new service has replaced it. I was led to believe that it was all being sorted out online, right? Now, if other people have been misled to think that it was all being sorted out online, we've actually got a lot of ombudsman complaints on the system that aren't having anything done about them, and the person isn't likely going to be going to get their MP to do it, and they're not going to be able to download it, right? Now, this is when we get to this page, right? I know I've been talking for 37 minutes, right? So look at that. This is a bit strange because look at this. The building of the Ombudsman to me looks very, very, very much like that. It looks like the new series that the BBC did, the war between the land and the sea, and they got that big metal tube in between. Look, this is the Ombudsman building, and it's got like a metal bridge thing in between the water and the Ombudsman building, right? It looks like that thing that they built in the programme in the war between the land and the sea to get into the building. Special thing. So that's quite interesting. In fact, I'm going to save that and put it as the thumbnail of the video. It's called Millbank Tower. Now, this is what... This is actually trying to make out the process. Time to act. Care and compassion. I don't know what the hell this... What is this? Right, this is what I wanted to find. Where are the past ombudsmans? Oh, here they are. Right, this is the list of past ombudsmen. And they've only been going since 1967. So, right, Paula Sussex. So, Paula Sussex is the new ombudsman, but she only started on the 26th of June 2025, but she's an MBE. Now, if you've served as the ombudsman, you can't serve as the ombudsman again. But I don't know if they recruit the people from within their service or get brand new people in. Now, if they're getting brand new people in and they're not from already within the service and they're kind of like awarded people and they're running it, they don't actually really have an insight into what actually was going on before them, right? Even though, they compile reports and do so forth and so forth, right? But Rebecca Hilsenrath was the ombudsman before. Now, her experience as Ombudsman there firsthand, no matter what she writes down and what she says about her time serving and passes that on to Paula Sussex, if she wasn't already lower down in the Ombudsman working there, right, if she's coming from outside, she can only go on what's written down and what people tell her. She can't actually go on actual knowledge herself, right? So if the Ombudsman, the past or previous Ombudsmans, if something's happening and they don't quite understand it or don't know it, then the next Ombudsman's not going to know it either, right? Now, I don't know when they implemented this new online service, but it can't be that long ago. Now, who set it up? Who designed it? Who was the strategist behind it, right? Because some of these people, like Rebecca Hilsenrath and Paula Sussex, some of these people like Paula Hilsenrath and Rebecca Hilsenrath and Paula Sussex, right? They might actually not be that clued in, because if there is some entity or group within the government, you know, that has ulterior motives, and they manage to get some input into this website or some influence on the website into how it's set up and run, Paula Sussex or Rebecca Hilsenrath might not actually click onto that or understand that or know it. So how the current website is currently being run at the moment, this brand new one, when it's strategically set up to not actually be user friendly, and that means that a lot of complaints will be sort of dead in the water because they don't get the MP to sign, because it looks like that, you know, it's all online for the MP to go in and look at himself, just like you, right? That means that there's someone could have designed the website and made it unuser friendly or obstructive without Rebecca Hilsenrath or Paula Sussex really clicking onto that. Although they're going to have lots of complaints with people asking what's happening with their Ombudsman complaint, but they're saying, oh, it's not a big deal, it's no biggie, you can just use a reference number and get your MP to sign it. But then they're saying, oh, well, they've got no obligation to, but they've made a website that misleads people. It's not even clear to download the form, and you already enter your MPs in their details, and it makes it look like when you click submit, the word submit, right? You know, if you're not submitting that to your MP and the Ombudsman, then who are you submitting it to? What was the point in putting your MP's name in, right? This is the thing. So I think in light of Starmer and this government, I don't think that someone, I'm not saying it's Paula Sussex and I'm not saying it's Rebecca Hilsenrath, right? But with all the whole country absolutely going ballistic at the moment and everyone complaining about everything and even going out of their way to go protesting about it and people getting arrested over it and massive, huge 3 million signature petitions, who isn't pissed off with the government or some department of the government at the moment, right? I've just got a feeling that they've made a deadlock on the end of it on purpose, right? And even it tricked me and misled me, right? They've made the process a deadlock fail, right? And then you're chasing up your MP to get the signature, and you know, if you've only got the reference number, and not many of them are going to want to endorse it, right? Just from the reference. And there's a lot of brand new MPs who are not experienced, right? And don't have years and years behind them. My gut feeling is that they've done that website on purpose, just like they're doing this digital. I can tell because they've done the same with the it was really easy to do your annual return and your accounts for your company, right? But they've done something switching it over to digital ID, which they really wanted you to connect your mobile phone to it, but I didn't want to. And I did it by paper documents. And then they literally give you a pair of rods at the end of it and said, oh, well, so effectively, right, they basically, what they're doing, a lot of people are complaining about people sending their company accounts and things like that into the government. They basically give us a big pair of rods, a big middle finger, right? Because I didn't want to connect my mobile phone to it, right? So I just used my normal passport, right? And uploaded a photo. And they didn't like me doing that, right? There's two options, and if you choose the option, they just basically tell you to F off, right? Basically, you just do like that. It just goes, well, we'll get back to you, right? But they didn't get back to me, right? If you don't select the the mobile phone thing, they really are quite hostile and basically very uncooperative. So, but this is the thing with Google now. When you go onto Google and want to create a new Gmail account, you've got to have a mobile phone with you. Even you can't create a Gmail account just by owning a computer or a laptop without a mobile phone. So they're really trying to make you have the mobile phone as well. So this current government is very, very hostile in all its processes and procedures that it's doing with us, right? It's heavily, aggressively trying to force you to connect and use your mobile phone with it, right? Heavily, aggressively trying to do it. And if they do provide another option, but if you choose that, they literally they literally basically hypothetically in the process basically go fuck you, basically they just leave you high and dry, which is what they're doing with this Ombudsman complaint form. I don't know what's happened to this government since David Cameron, but I'm finding it with lots of websites at the moment, like the Fiverr website. If you don't use their app, if you don't get the app, if you use the actual website itself, they're making it very unfriendly. They're making it load slow. They're putting buttons over the top of other buttons. They're doing all these things to try and hinder and stop you and make it very unpleasant, have a very unpleasant experience. And that's effectively what Google Ads is doing and YouTube ads, If you don't pay for it, they make you have an unpleasant, nasty experience. And I don't know why that happened to the world, because that wasn't the case in 2005, but it's all business strategy now. Sergey Brin, Neil Moore and Mark Zuckerberg, they're not nice people. They pretend that they are, right? They're like, oh, we're a nice person. We're friendly. We're making this product for you. It's free. We're the good guys. But they're very, very good at making your experience extremely unpleasant and to get you to do what they want you to do, right? Which I don't think that's ethical, right? It's I wouldn't do that to someone, right? You get some people, right, who are what you call kind and honest people, right? Do you want to go to the cinema? No. Oh, that's okay, fair enough then, right? Do you ask them a question and they can choose, right? But these huge, massive business people, these massive elitists like Larry Ellison and people like that, they've got this thing going where we have ways to make you talk, or we know it's like the fascists. It's like, yes, we have ways to make you talk. We have ways to make you do what we want you to do, right? It's like pinching, literally twist your nipple till you do what they want, right? So it's like they'll make your experience very, very, very unpleasant, right? And to try coerce and encourage you to do what they want you to do, right? Download the app or do this or that, We can make our life very unhappy, very, we can make the prices of the food very, very expensive, we can make the cost of living very, very high, and then you won't have lots of spare money to, oppose us with your campaigns and advertisements, things like that. So this is the thing. That's going on at this moment, and I've got a feeling that, even though, I'm not saying Paula Sussex is a bad person, right? I don't think Paula Sussex herself is like a bad person, but there's this whole very nasty government thing going on at the moment, right, where they're desperately trying to make everything life as unpleasant as possible until they get us to agree and sign up to this digital ID agenda thing, which they're trying to push, right? So then they can have more control over people, and then they can actually really make your life unhappy by just pushing a button and blocking people from, using the bus and doing things like they're doing in China, right? But yeah, it's the government who are actually the ones who are breaking the law, the government who are breaking the rules, the government who aren't following processes and procedures. Now, Paula Sussex started in the 26th of June 2025, so she's only just started. Rebecca Hinselwath was only there since April 2024. It was Rob Brehens who was there from the 6th of April 2017 to March 2024. Now, and then it was Dame Julie Mellor 2012. So I don't know whether it was Dame Julie Mellor or Rob Brehens who was there when I submitted my Ombudsman complaint in paper. But if they can only take a complaint from one department and look into it, why didn't they just pick one of them, right, of my complaint? Because isn't it a waste of submitting the complaint and getting the MP to sign it, right, if no one's going to do anything about it? Surely, if you are a government department that is specialising in wrongdoing complaints about government departments, and you're supposedly behind the scenes correlating evidence to prove that, multiple people have complained about the same thing and there's a big issue, along comes a complaint, right, which is very, very serious, and it's got multiple departments in it, right? Now, if you ignore that, when you're meant to be doing your best to try get intel and find out about departments not doing something right and organisations in government, if you were to ignore any complaint that anyone sent in, wouldn't that be not only reckless but also dangerous and possibly irresponsible, right? Surely that's irresponsible. So, it seems ridiculous to me. And the fact is that we're going to be, we are supposed to resolve these ourselves through petition and wait in numbers to get the government to act. But there are already petitions about many things the government are not acting on, right? There was already loads of petitions about ULEZ the government weren't acting on. This Noel Wilcox guy could go to the Ombudsman about the illegal road signage, but he's actually taking them on himself, and he's even getting a council to help him now. It doesn't seem like he's going to the Ombudsman. The Ombudsman is one option if you're not going to do, because we fund the Ombudsman. We fund it. So why would you use your own money and go through the courts and then even go to a local council, right, when the Ombudsman's there, supposed to be paid for, right? In fact, the argument in the Parliament committee reports, which says that, if the House of Commons Commissioner doesn't take it on, it's not privilege. Well, a lot of rubbish and tosh. That's like saying a police officer, if the court doesn't take his investigation on, that we're going to prosecute him for chasing after a criminal or for kicking a door down, right? Which is utter tosh. It's privileged. It's matters and causes to the Parliament, right? And the House of Commons Commissioner is going to be Parliament, right? House matters and causes to Parliament. And the Ombudsman is because your MP signs it off. So even if you don't do any e-petitions, if your investigation is to the Ombudsman or to the House of Commons Commissioner, then that is, on our part, it should fall under the Bill of Rights, under matters and causes to Parliament, right? Now, if the Ombudsman is not taking on your complaint when you set something down in writing, very serious matter, and the MP signed it, right, that is disgraceful, and the law needs changing, and it's obstructive. And I actually believe that because the whole point of petitioning Parliament and the right to petition is that you can write down whatever you want and put a prayer on there, and, you know, if your MP endorses it, that's it, right? I don't think that the Ombudsman can reject it, and I think that it should really be their matter to separate them. But they're correlating things together. They're meant to be using strategy behind the scenes to correlate things together to identify issues, right? Now, if they won't correlate your 3 complaints when you submit them separately together, then they can't be that intelligent, can they, right? And they won't be solving a problem. So I'm not buying it. And I'm going to call out Paula Sussex now on this. And I know that when you submit videos, their staff do listen to them, because that's one positive, right? I did have a telephone conversation with the Ombudsman. In fact, there's been some helpful staff on there, right? But trying to get in contact with the Ombudsman themselves, apparently they're very, very high up, and it's apparently, you know, they don't listen to lowly people like us, right? But I did submit a video complaint, and the lady did say that she listened to it, right? So I'm going to submit this one, right? And I'm going to make it very clear, right? I believe that new website, whoever designed it, right, has purposefully designed it so that the average unsuspecting person who comes along, who's never used the Ombudsman service before, would complete it, create an account, fill it in, get to the end of the process and press submit, and then just think that was it, right, from what they've got on the screen, right? Because why would you have both digital and paper copy of something? The whole point is in having digital is so that you no longer need paper anymore, right? So why would you download it? You filled in who your MP's name is, right? If that Ombudsman form and service, right, is not technologically set up to already have all of the MP's emails and contacts in the system, like many places like Big Brother Watch do, right? And they're just normal campaign groups, right? They've got it set up so you fill in a complaint, type who your MP is, you press a button and it sends them an email, right? So why won't the Ombudsman have it that advanced, right? It made it look and feel like that was the new system, right? And apparently it's not. You're just in limbo. But that's not the point. The point is that there are many, many, many people who might be doing their Ombudsman complaint like on their lunch break, like if they've got a demanding job, like, you know, they might work for the government, might be whistleblowers, or they just might, you know, have a job where, you know, they're so busy with their family on an evening that the only time they get to submit the Ombudsman complaint is like on their lunch break, right, at work. Now, what happens if they get it all written down online and submitted, but they just don't have time to download it there, right? And then when you can do it later, but apparently you can't do it later. So, to me, right, I get the very strong feeling, regardless of what Paula Sussex or Rebecca Hasselrath thinks, right? I believe whoever made that website wants to obstruct us and somehow deter people. And I think that would fall under misconduct against petitioners and other soliciting business to Parliament, because it's an offence under Erskine May, under misconduct against petitioners, right? It says that it is an offence, right, a crime against Parliament to deter or obstruct someone, right, from their civil messenger processes, right? Now, we know that both the Parliamentary Service Ombudsman, because it's signed by an MP, and the Parliament House of Commons Commissioner are causes and matters to Parliament, right? That's the point. So if you can't download your form at the end of that process, when you return to the website or when you log back in, if you don't do it there and then, this is the question. Are we being obstructed from downloading the form? Because anyone who filled it in on their dinner break, right? Anyone who filmed that form in on their dinner break might not have time to download it then, right? They might say, all right, it's all online, it's all saved. Save, submit, right? It's done, right? I've created a complaint. I'll sort it out with my MP later, right? Who wouldn't think that in their right mind? A normal person, right? So I think it's obstructive. And the fact that, it's okay. They must know this, because they're saying that, you can use the reference number, you can give it to your MP. But, if you've got an extremely liberal MP, right, who's, very open-minded and laid back, and you say to him, hey, I'd submit this complaint. It's about, I'm complaining about the e-petition service. That's what it's about. Here's my reference number. Can you just authorise it, please, to the Ombudsman, right? They say, yeah, no problem, right? But knowing Iqbal Muhammad, right, and Asians are extremely particular about details, right? They want to read everything and know what it is, right? They want to act. I know that Iqbal Muhammad, right, he will want to see that complaint and read it in full before he authorises it, just because I've got the feeling that's the type of guy he is, right? Meticulous, right? So he's not going to be able to do it. So it just, knowing what Labour are up to at the moment generally, and this government, the cabinet, the ministers, right? It doesn't matter whether it's Paula Sussex, whether it's Rebecca Hasselnaff, Rob Brehens, or Dame Julie Mellor, and they're making out, we're here to help you, right? Look, right, this government doesn't want to be helped in the sense of complaints about it, right? We've had over 150,000 people. It could have been 3 million people, right? Marching over London Bridge, singing that Keir Starmer's a wanker, right? In a protest. The police said it could have been up to 3 million people, but then the news said 150,000, right? That's a lot of people complaining about the Prime Minister. We've got multiple complaints to the e-petition service, and we know that many of them have been rejected and censored, or the government are lying and saying, "No, we don't know what you're asking," or it's not something we can do, when it is, right? Because that's what my complaint's about. And then they're trying to make out that, if they don't take it on, it's not privileged, right? Well, if they don't take it on and it's not privileged, then surely the Ombudsman definitely can act, because it's a government service that apparently doesn't fall under parliamentary privilege, right? So it's almost like a double blinder, that one. And then we've got 1 million signatures on the ULEZ cause to the House of Lords, which I collected together from all of the separate petitions. Theresa Villiers had the matter debated in Parliament, and she was opposed to it. Bromley Council and 5 other councils challenged the mayor on it. Now we've got this guy, Noel Wilcox, who found illegal road signage himself, and it was approved by a county court, and then when he tried to get it resolved at the High Court, they wouldn't take his case on, so now he's having to get Bromley Council to back him up. He could have gone to the Ombudsman about those legal road signage. So it's like, how many people, or how much of a big issue does this government need in order to actually act or do something? And that's even if you can get them to even look at it, right? It's there. This government is fascist, right? It's a fascist government. They are trying to suppress all opposition against them when they're acting unlawfully and illegally, right? And that is very serious. And I'm very concerned now about Paula Sussex, right? She's just turned up in June 2025. So she She has not been there a year yet, and she's not been in that organisation before. I don't know if she's had meetings with Rachel Hisenrath. I don't think these ombudsmen really know what's going on, because I don't think that the ombudsman designed the website. And if they did, there's got to be, if there's some affiliation with Paula Sussex to the Labour Party, right, I would be calling her out for purposely having a website which was obstructive. Because if they're saying that you have to download that form, right, well, they're saying that you don't have to download it. They're saying you only need the reference number, but the MPs aren't looking into it unless they see the form. They want to see it, right? Now, if you make a website where you can't download the form at any time you want, and it can only be done at one time or of this specific critical moment, right? But yet your complaint's on there and everything's there when you yourself log in, right? It seems to me like they've created a obstruction between you and your MP, right? And I believe that it's on purpose, right? Because, you know, it's just they're not wanting, they don't even want people to see, sign and support e-petitions, right? When you've got the right to do it over allegations. It's in the standing orders of Parliament that they will contain material allegations. If after they created the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman, right? If they created the Ombudsman, and if they created the House of Commons Commissioner as well, right, then why didn't they change standing orders, the wording of it, so it doesn't say material allegations anymore? So it just says to amending and strengthening the laws, right? So then e-petitions is only for purely amending and strengthening the laws, which is just like, you know, suggesting new acts of law, or, you know, suggesting tax revenue changes, right? Like tampons, whatever, Laura Corrigan. So they haven't changed the wording in the standing orders, and that's what public petitions are for, and that's what e-petitions for. But they don't want you to use it. So I believe that it's purposely done to be obstructive now. The Ombudsman is as obstructive as the e-petition service, and they're trying to make out that they're off. Oh, it's Paula Sussex, you know, like a cuddly teddy bear. Oh, look, it's Paula Sussex. Hi, everyone, I'm here to help you. I'm the Ombudsman, you know, cross my heart and hope to die. You know, this is the thing, right? Paula Sussex and Rebecca Hasselhoff, like they're going on these videos with these girls, right? Oh, look, how can we make our service better? We really want to help you. You know, we're really there. We exist to try to combat misconduct in government. What can we possibly do to prevent all these misconducts, to put things right? That's what we're here for, right? And they put all these videos out, right? You know, it's almost like Neil Mohan on YouTube, you know, hey, I'm Neil Mohan, I'm making this free platform, I'm a good guy, right? But then why are you why are YouTube taking down constitutionally protected material in England, which is completely and totally illegal, and to threaten to take it down is a terrorist act, right? And they're also, the Equalities Act 2010, they're treating people who express sex and their sexuality, they're treating them differently, right? So if you get two accounts using the exact same video, which expresses their sex or sexuality, right, YouTube are treating one account completely different to how they treat the other account, although it's the exact same video, right? Even no matter how much you complain or write to them. That isn't a criminal offence against the Equalities Act 2010, right? And no one's doing anything about it. No one, right? And particularly with the Parliament complaints, the casework, because, you know, like on the Ombudsman site now, when you create an account and you've got casework on there, right? That's what you're doing on YouTube if you're doing it by normal petition, because you've got to have some casework somewhere and you've got to store it somewhere, and you really want to get... They say in the history of Parliament, in multiple documents, right? I can point you to this, right? You know, they say it in the committee reports. They say that the best thing to do with public petitioning is that you're raising awareness of an issue and you're getting the public to back it and support it. Now, if you've got an ombudsman website, right, and only you can log in and no one else can see the complaint, right, you're not raising awareness of it and you're not getting people to help support it, right? But you can with e-petitions, right? So this is the thing. Now, you might not want people to see your personal details, but this is the thing. The general complaint and the general issue, you're only putting the general complaint and the general issue, you're trying to do it on e-petitions, but they're trying to stop you, right? And don't you think, right, you know, in all their great wisdom, the Ombudsman, right, oh, don't worry, all these hundreds of thousands of complaints we're getting in, we've got a team of brainiacs, a team of very, very intelligent brainiac people behind the scenes who are going to put all this together like a jigsaw puzzle, right? The brainiacs are going to piece it all together like a jigsaw puzzle and then solve it. Hey, look, we solved the problem. We worked something going out here. Look, there's a institutional corruption going on here between the police and local councils, you know, and even the CPS. We've solved the problem. We're geniuses, right? But if you're doing public petitions, and if they're live on the website and people can see them, the general issue, right, you know, without having to put any personal, you don't have to put any super personal details. You can write out the general issue, right, and get loads of people to sign it to compel the government to act. If you go on the petitions site and it's got material allegations, which is meant what petitions are meant to be for, don't you think the public can put two and two together? Don't you think the public can say, oh, look, someone's complaining about the police there, then another person, they're all illegal arrests. Hey, look, they're not upholding our rights. Like, let's put our heads together, right? Don't you think the people can be the brainiacs and put two and two together and work out what's going on, right? But, oh, no, we'll trust the Ombudsman to do it behind the scenes, right? But they're not even officially taking the complaints on, you know? I put two and two together, I put 2 and 3 together and submitted it, and they wouldn't act on it. And they wouldn't even ignore 2 of the complaints to act on the third. And now they're making out that, oh, it was never, you know, we don't have any record of you ever submitting it, sir, right? You know, because it was a long time ago, and we didn't act on it, so, you know, it's been erased. You know, what good's that? I'm extremely concerned about this Ombudsman now, right? And if you can't get to speak to Paula Sussex, if you can't write into the Ombudsman, you know, to the highest part of the building, right, to address these issues, there's a serious problem, right? They're not trying to help us. They aren't trying to help us. If people in this Ombudsman service are affiliated with the Labour Party, right, and Keir Starmer and Tony Blair, we've got serious problems because the final nail in all this is this, right? The Attorney General of England can't be in place lawfully. He can't be. It's against Standing Order 87. How can he be a member of the House of Lords and get to vote on legislation in the Lords, but yet he's allowed to take part in deliberations in matters to do with legislation and laws and bills in the House of Commons? Because who the hell in history has had this must be creating a new privilege that no one else ever had, right? He can advise and affect and influence, even though not vote or motion, right? He can take part in and contribute to deliberations, right, in the House of Commons procedure, which is understanding orders of the House of Commons, but then he gets to vote on it in the Lords, right? Now, that, to me, is absolutely insane, right? And if this Attorney General, when the Ombudsman prosecutes, are they using the Attorney General? When the Ombudsman prosecutes, are they using the CPS? When the Ombudsman prosecutes, are they using, you know, their own lawyers? We don't know, right? But if the Attorney General of England is compromised, right? I mean, who's coming up with a law for the Ombudsman? Does that mean, are you telling me, right, that if they wanted to amend or change the Ombudsman Act itself, the Attorney General can take part in those deliberations and advise on it, and then he gets to vote on it in the Lords after he's submitted influence on it in the Commons, right? right? So the Attorney General could effectively take part in deliberations over the Ombudsman Act, right? And then he can vote on it in the Lords. So that to me is ringing alarm bells, right? So I've had enough of this kind of Paula Sussex, Rebecca Hilson-Raff thing. I need my MP phoned me today, and my phone wasn't on. It didn't ring out loud, right? It must have just vibrated quietly, and I wasn't expecting. They're on holiday at the moment. All of the MPs are going to be on holiday, so that threw me off. I wasn't expecting my MP to try to call me today, right, the day before New Year's Eve, because the MPs are going to be on holiday, right? So he did try to call me, right? But, I've explained to him, it's a complaint that there's not much else to know other than, I want an investigation into the e-petition service, right? So, I'm gonna phone 50 MPs, right? Because they're all signed to Jeremy Corbyn's open letter, right? That means, and it's only about 5 prisoners, so how we can have 50 MPs working on a case with 5 prisoners? Surely some of those MPs are not the MPs of those prisoners, right? But they're still working on it, so they can work on my issue, right? 50 MPs can work on this. I'm going to have to telephone 50 MPs now with my reference number, and hopefully one of them will be able to do something to get my complaint looked at, right? Because the current system, there's something wrong with it, right? What they need to do, the Ombudsman now, is firstly, they need to try and find out what happened to my first original complaint, and they need to act on at least one of those issues that I raised, right? And it needs to be acted on in respect of the time when I submitted it, right? It needs to be regarded as being accepted and received at that time, right? On a time scale thing, not say like, it's too far in the past or whatever. I did what was required by any person. And then what this Ombudsman service needs to do is look at some of these forms that, Big Brother Watch are using, like David Davis MP, where they've already got all the MPs' email addresses logged into the system, right? Now, if the Ombudsman of England, the most state-of-the-art website of the whole world, has not already got the email addresses of all 650 MPs on its system, and when you click a button which says submit, when you've already entered your MP's name into the form, right, if it is not, the whole point of using digital online casework is that you do not need paper casework anymore, right? Why would you print something out when it's already online, already on the system? Because that's pointless. Because what's the point of making a website? Why make the website? Why fill in an online form? Because you don't need a paper form anymore because you filled it in online. So why would I need to print it out? Right? When you press submit on that form, right, after entering the name of your MP, right, after entering their name, it needs to be automatically sending him an email, right, automatically with your complaint, right, and the number, and he needs to click a button to authorise it, right? Like on e-petitions. On e-petitions, when you submit your complaint, it sends you an email, right? Or you can put anyone's email, and then when they click on it, it adds their name, right? So it needs to send an email to the MP with a link, and then he just clicks on it, and then it says that he's approved it, right? That's what he needs to do. And there's no reason why they can't do that now, right? They can do that now, and that's what he needs to do, because that is from, and I'm not that thick, right? Because I've done the Ombudsman complaint before. But if I hadn't done the Ombudsman complaint before, and if I hadn't contacted the MP and got it signed off, I wouldn't, from the wording at the end of it, what they showed to the absolute novice who was new to it, they would not have even thought that they had to do anything else. That was it, done, right? And there wasn't an obvious download form for the form. And if there was, they would have thought it was just for a copy for themselves, right? It made it look and feel like that because you'd entered your MP's name that you submit it and it's all going to be sorted out for you, right? So that it needs to be sorted out very soon. That website needs to be upgraded. And they're really, if e-petitions weren't rejecting petitions that had allegations in them, which is in standing orders that they can still, right, for public petitions, a lot of people wouldn't be going to the Ombudsman. A lot of people would be getting the public to back them up on their simple allegatory complaint, and the amount of signatures would be compelling the government to act and do something itself, right, anyway. And a lot of people aren't using the Ombudsman. They're relying on the courts, which costs money, and it costs them money, right? I use petitioning Parliament because they're meant, they're meant to sort it out for you. And if you go to court and you lose, you got to pay costs, right? Look at Graham Moore with his election petition. He did an election petition, he lost, and it cost him loads of money, and there was a financial barrier to it. Originally, election petitions aren't supposed to have those barriers and aren't supposed to hit you with costs. They're meant to be the same as public petitions. It's questionable whether there should be a parliamentary and health service ombudsman. Now that loads and loads of people are investigating the government and loads of people have got access to information online and doing freedom of information requests. Look, right, there's loads and loads of people like that Rob the Ratcatcher guy, who was on Richard Verb's, right? Many guests who go on Verb's YouTube channel, they are investigating the government. They are investigating local councils. Look at Colchester Council Watch, right? What they need is powers. Now, the whole point of having the Ombudsman is that they've got an army of prosecutors at their beck and call. They can bring cases and prosecute. They're funded, right? That's the point in having the Ombudsman. But now, with the Freedom of Information Act and with the wonders of the internet and wonders of modern technology, people can investigate and have been investigating. But this is the problem. There must be so many complaints about the government now, right? That this is the thing, that these complaints are being obstructed. It's like the actual e-petition service itself is like a fishing net catching them all, like getting them all caught up in it. They all get submitted, but they won't publish them, and we can't collect signatures. And the Ombudsman has got these forms, they're not taking on complaints because you submitted too many complaints or whatever, or why don't they just ignore the other two? And well, they're not separate complaints, right? It's the same complaint, and you correlated it together, and the Ombudsman are meant to correlate it together, but you've done the work for them, right? So you helped them out. I'm going to look at that Ombudsman Act 1967, and I'm going to find out if it says in there anywhere that complaints have to be separate. I don't think they do, because why would they correlate them together afterwards, right? And if they can only take on one complaint at a time, right, they just ignore two of them, right? Why does it matter which two they ignore? Look, it's better for them to look at one complaint than not look at any. So if they, toss a coin, if it covers three separate departments involved in it, they just pick one of them and do that, right? At least it's doing something rather than nothing, right? So we are being obstructed. We're being blocked and obstructed. And, it's easy to know that once you know the actual extent of the corruption in the government. When you actually know the extent of the corruption in the government, in fact, I've just found a book now which talks about the right to petition, and it's saying that explicitly, if the government is not doing what the people want it to do, then you've got serious issues, right? And that's actually what's going on now. Starmer is trying to do all these strategies that they've been planning for a long time, digital identity and everything, and people aren't happy about it, and that's why you've got all these protests and complaints. So, I mean, there's another 40 minutes here that I've just made. So all I can do is send this to my MP. I don't think my MP is going to want to listen to this for 40 minutes. And I don't think Paula Sussex is either.